How are Trump's tariffs not to blame for inflation? 25 on nearly everything imported from China, history's largest trade relationship. As a small business owner, I had to raise my prices nearly 10 to account for them. If the goods you're buying weren't imported from China, there's a part in it that was, or a tool used on it that was, or the plastic it's wrapped in was. Why is this not more talked about? I think attributing inflation to a single cause is a mistake. Also, work visa restrictions reducing the labor force. I lost a good co-worker from it, and I work in consulting, so we never really got a proper replacement to take on the projects that landed on my lap from that person leaving. Because monetary policy is the main driver of inflation. Everything else is noise. Inflation is a measure of the increase in prices month to month. The increase in price due to the instantaneous implementation of a tariff would be a one-time increase, which would be seen in a monthly measure but would not credibly happen month after month. Inflation has been above targets for well over a year, so the month where tariff-driven inflation occurred would already be out of the year-over-year measure, even if it did cause an appreciable increase in the month where it happened. If they're so bad, why has Biden not touched them in 3 years? To answer your question directly, tariffs are a significant contributor to the cost of the supply chain. This is a short-term input. The long-term gamble is the importance of protecting domestic means of production. Without the tariffs, then only the subsidized manufacturing businesses of foreign countries will remain viable on a 5, 10, 15-year horizon. It takes a long time to get a manufacturing industry back once it's dead. The tariffs were not Trump's idea. They are a part of the economic reality of a global financial war. They are being kept in place for the same reason. It's not about Biden either. Because Trump tariff is the best tariff, many people say. Very smart, tall and beautiful people say it not only protects domestic manufacturer, raise price on foreign made and lower price for consumers. They say it is the perfect tariff. I've been wondering the same thing. I run a small business and my costs skyrocketed in 2019 due to the trade war import tax shit. I think we would need to quantify how much of an impact it has had. I am 100% willing to accept it is part of the overall inflation. I just would need to see some kind of number-based argument, and then account for the other impacts tariffs have. Inflation is caused by only two things. First is government spending. Second is the Federal Reserve's expansion of the money supply. While tariffs may lead to higher priced goods, it's not the same thing as inflation. Stop buying from China. Start competing on quality and not just the cheapest crap available. Politics aside, there is not one sole cause for this inflation. Multiple factors contributed to it. Pretty much everyone is to blame, including the consumers. China is paying the tariffs. That was one of the lies that Trump kept repeating. Because it's very logical and obvious. We still can't get people to believe he lost the 2020 election and didn't have a part in trying to overturn it. People are dumb, logic is gone, no one cares anymore about macroeconomics, they only care about their personal bank account. Cue the long train of bad arguments and irrelevant twaddle. When everyone gets stimmy checks and when Congress passes outrageous spending bills, the Fed is forced to issue more debt, sell bonds. They inject this unprecedented amount of new money into the economy, which causes inflation. The more they print money, the less valuable our existing dollars become. Here come his dick riders. Because the GOP strategy is entirely built on marketing and propaganda rather than policy discussion. Joe Biden is president. This is his problem. He is just a brain-dead zombie, however. So we are all screwed. Why is this not more talked about? Because it is complicated and doesn't always reflect a one-one relationship between cost added by tariffs and the landed price for the product in America. Some of the tariff is absorbed by the producer in China, some is absorbed by middlemen importers so as not to raise their prices, and some are absorbed by end users who also don't want to raise their prices. I have not seen an analysis of the relationship between tariffs on products in China and resulting increase in prices in America, but suffice to say it is not 25 increase in prices in America, because that is related to supply and demand. Trump's printing of billions of dollars for stimulus checks instead of tax breaks created more inflation. Biden's continued printing of even more billions made it worse. Inflation has only one cause, which is an expansion of the monetary supply. Would this have affected other countries, too? I assume it's a contributor, but not as big as the Fed printing more money. Because shutting down the planet had more of an impact. It is. All taxes are. Because Trump's tariffs didn't print trillions of dollars out of thin air. Because China will be paying these tariffs according to a certain orange moron who doesn't have the first clue how tariffs or anything else for that matter work. How are Trump's tariffs not to blame for inflation? Well, to be fair, his administration increasing the debt by nearly 25 also probably caused inflation. M3 broad money supply is to blame. Look up the 70 money creation of 2020 and 2021. M3 is the main driver of inflation, and usually CPI lags it by 12 to 24 months. If you look at the historical M3 versus inflation charts, you will see this over the last 100 years. We just burned 1T out of the money supply over the last year, so inflation will flatten or become slightly negative for the short term. If you want to predict inflation, follow the M3. Trump absolutely ruined this country, and idiotic people still love him and want to vote for him. I say these people need an education, and a big increase in moral values. Inflation due to government spending, hiring more public servants that do little to the efficiencies of the economy. Inflation started to show itself in early 2021, the foundation for that inflation was built under Trump on his massive spending, massive debt, tax cuts and tariffs. Anyone that thinks Biden was able to cause inflation in his first 6 weeks in office is a fool. Trump tried to booby-trap the economy, but President Biden has easily sidestepped every one of them. I mean, the big 25 tariffs have been implemented by the Trump administration in 2018. Yet, inflation started climbing up only in Q1 2021. They have nothing to do with inflation. Inflation is caused by the total money in circulation, not by price increases in particular places. A tariff does not increase or decrease the total money supply. Because it's much easier to blame you peasants and your $2,500 checks from 3 years ago. That's why. Now shut up and go be grateful you can't afford to live in the formerly greatest country in the world. Propaganda. Trump is so smart. He planned all this knowing he'd lose the election and was able to keep inflation and costs down while in office, but screwed the Biden administration once they took over. He's brilliant enough that maybe he should be president again. Because tards have rabies. Love it. Every bad thing is Trump's fault, even when he's not in charge. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the trillions of dollars that we printed over the last few years and the government overspending like crazy. Also, corporate greed as a whole. There is a Reddit argument to be made Donald Trump is directly responsible for cancer, World War II, and Lincoln's assassination. Do you really think the consumer prices would drop if tariffs were removed? Business always charges what the market will bear. If anything, it increases the odds that a product will be produced here. Trump's tariffs are definitely a part of it. It's not the whole reason. Trump 2024, thumbs up, flexed biceps. QE1. Tariffs do not equal inflation. Comment summary: inflation is an ethereal concept that can only be viewed through a specific lens that excludes inflationary factors you don't care to acknowledge. Conclusion: macroeconomics is not a science. It is astrology for people who like statistics. Trump is to blame for everything, dummy. Trump's heavy quantitative easing policy had more to do with our current inflation than the tariffs.